At her billionaire ex-husband's wedding, she watched him dance with the flower girl, not knowing she was his secret daughter. Griffin's voice cut through the reception noise like a knife. How old is she? Hazel felt her world tilting. Griffin, not here. Please. His hands were shaking. How old is she, Hazel? The little girl who'd just danced on his feet at his wedding. The flower girl with his storm gray eyes. The daughter he didn't know existed. She stood between them now, confused by the tension crackling in the air. 4. Hazel's voice barely worked. She just turned 4. She watched him do the math. 5 years since their divorce. 4-year-old daughter. His face drained of all color. Is she mine? 300 wedding guests celebrated around them. His new bride stood frozen 10 feet away, and Hazel had to answer the question that would detonate everything. Yes, 1 word. 3 letters. And Griffin Ashcroft's entire wedding day shattered like crystal on marble. At her billionaire ex-husband's wedding, she watched him dance with the flower girl, not knowing she was his secret daughter. Griffin's voice cut through the reception noise like a knife. How old is she? Hazel felt her world tilting. Griffin, not here. Please. His hands were shaking. How old is she, Hazel? The little girl who just danced on his feet at his wedding. The flower girl with his storm gray eyes. The daughter he didn't know existed. She stood between them now, confused by the tension crackling in the air. 4. Hazel's voice barely worked. She just turned 4. She watched him do the math. 5 years since their divorce. 4-year-old daughter. His face drained of all color. Is she mine? 300 wedding guests celebrated around them. His new bride stood frozen 10 feet away, and Hazel had to answer the question that would detonate everything. Yes, 1 word. 3 letters. And Griffin Ashcroft's entire wedding day shattered like crystal on marble. But let me back up, because to understand how we got to this moment, how a father ended up dancing with his daughter at his own wedding without knowing who she was, we need to go back to where this impossible story began. Have you ever watched someone you loved celebrate their new life while your shared secret stood right in front of them? Have you ever been forced to stay silent while your world shattered into pieces you knew you'd never put back together? This is what happens when power and manipulation collide with love. This is the story of a woman who was thrown away like yesterday's trash and the child who became her anchor, her purpose, her entire reason for surviving. But here's what the billionaire ex-husband didn't know. That flower girl dancing on his shoes at his wedding reception? She's about to change absolutely everything. And the woman hiding in the shadows watching it all unfold? She's about to stop running. Welcome to Love and Twilights with Dr. Phillips, where we explore the complicated, messy, beautiful truths about love, family, and the choices that define who we become. I'm Dr. Phillips, and today's story is going to reach inside your chest and squeeze. This is about mothers who protect their children against impossible odds, about men who have to learn what it really means to fight for what matters, about families that break apart and somehow, against all logic, find ways to rebuild. If you've ever felt powerless against someone else's manipulation, if you've ever had to choose between love and survival, if you have ever wondered whether some betrayals cut too deep to ever truly heal, you need to hear every single word of what's coming. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on those notifications, because this journey is going to challenge everything you think you know about forgiveness, redemption, and what real love actually requires. And do me a favor, drop a comment right now telling me this. What would you do if you had to keep a secret this big? If protecting your child meant hiding them from their father, would you do it? Could you live with that choice? Because Hazel Monroe lived with that choice for 5 years. 5 years of looking at her daughter's face and seeing the man who'd broken her heart. 5 years of answering the question, "Where's my daddy?" with carefully constructed half-truths. 5 years of building a life in the shadows while Griffin Ashcroft built an empire in the spotlight, and it all came crashing down at his wedding to another woman. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. Let me take you back to the beginning, back to when Hazel was just a girl with paint under her fingernails and dreams bigger than her tiny studio apartment. Back to when Griffin was a man trying to be more than his last name. Back to when they thought love could conquer anything. Spoiler alert, it couldn't. But maybe, just maybe, it could survive. The gallery opening was one of those pretentious Manhattan affairs where the wine cost more than Hazel's monthly rent, and everyone spoke in hushed, reverent tones about brush strokes and artistic vision. Hazel wasn't there as a guest. She was there in her black pants and white shirt, carrying trays of champagne, trying not to make eye contact with anyone who might realize she didn't belong in their world. She'd taken the catering job to pay for art supplies. Her real work, the paintings that made her heart sing, those were drying in her apartment 15 blocks away. This world of gallery openings and wealthy collectors, this wasn't for girls like her. Girls who'd put themselves through art school on scholarships and student loans. Girls who mixed their own paint colors because buying them pre-made was a luxury she couldn't afford. But then she saw him. Griffin Ashcroft stood in front of a painting that everyone else had walked past without a second glance. It was an abstract piece, all sharp angles and bleeding colors. Most people didn't get it, but Griffin was staring at it like it was speaking a language only he could understand. His mother stood beside him, diamonds at her throat, boredom on her face. Beatrice Ashcroft, Manhattan royalty, old money personified. She was saying something about the artist being derivative, about the whole show being a waste of their time. Griffin ignored her. He kept staring at that painting. Hazel found herself drifting closer, champagne tray forgotten. She wanted to know what he saw in it. What made him look at art like it mattered, instead of like it was just another transaction. You see it too. His voice startled her. She nearly dropped the tray. See what? The anger. He gestured to the painting. Everyone else sees chaos. But it's not chaos. It's rage. Controlled. Channeled. Transformed into something beautiful. Hazel felt her breath catch. Yes. That's exactly what it is. He turned to look at her then. Really look at her. Not the dismissive glance wealthy people gave service staff, but actual seeing. Griffin. He extended his hand. Hazel. She shook it, aware of the champagne tray balanced precariously on her other hand, aware of his mother's eyes narrowing as she watched the exchange. Beatrice's voice cut between them like a blade. Griffin, we're leaving. This entire event is beneath us. You go ahead, Mother. I'll catch up. Griffin. I said I'll catch up. Beatrice's lips pressed into a thin line. She looked at Hazel like she was something unpleasant on the bottom of her shoe. Then she left, her heels clicking against the gallery floor like gunshots. I'm sorry about that. Griffin's voice was quiet. She's not great with people. Seems like she's fine with people. Hazel felt bold suddenly. Just not with people she doesn't think matter. His laugh was surprised. Honest. You're not wrong. They talked for the next 20 minutes, about art, about the city, about what it felt like to look at something beautiful and feel it rearrange something inside you. Hazel forgot she was working, forgot she was supposed to be invisible. When her supervisor caught her and sent her back to the kitchen with a glare, Griffin followed. When do you get off work? Hazel blinked at him. What? Your shift. When does it end? In about 2 hours. Why? Because I'd like to take you to dinner. Actually dinner, not this overpriced gallery nonsense. She should have said no, should have recognized the gap between their worlds and protected herself. But his eyes were kind. His smile was real. And Hazel had spent so long being invisible that being seen felt like oxygen. Okay. He came back 2 hours later, waited outside the gallery entrance like he had nothing better to do than stand on a Manhattan street corner in a $1,000 suit. They went to a tiny Vietnamese restaurant in Chinatown where the tables wobbled and the soup came in chipped bowls, and Griffin ate like he'd discovered food for the first time. This is incredible. He looked at her across the table. How did you find this place? I live 3 blocks from here. This is my neighborhood. Something shifted in his expression. Tell me about your neighborhood. So she did. She told him about her studio apartment with the broken radiator and the view of a brick wall, about the bodega owner who let her buy groceries on credit when money was tight, about the subway musicians she stopped to listen to every morning, about the art she made when everyone else was sleeping because those quiet hours were the only time her mind went silent enough to create. And Griffin listened, not the polite half-attention wealthy people gave when they were waiting for their turn to talk, but real listening, like her words mattered, like she mattered. He told her about his life too, about being raised to run an empire he'd never asked for, about board meetings and expectations and the weight of a family name that had been important since before he was born, about loving art and literature and philosophy, but being told those were hobbies, not purposes, about feeling like an actor in someone else's play. When he walked her home, they stopped outside her building. The contrast was almost funny. Him in his designer suit, her in her catering uniform, two people from different universes who'd somehow collided. "Can I see you again?" His voice was hopeful, uncertain in a way that made him seem less like an Ashcroft and more like just a man. "Yeah," Hazel smiled. "I'd like that." That was 5 years ago, and for 6 months they existed in a bubble, secret dates in her neighborhood where no one knew his name, long conversations that stretched until dawn, him showing up at her apartment with takeout and wine, sitting on her floor while she painted, content to just be near her. He didn't tell his mother. Hazel understood why. Beatrice Ashcroft would have ended it before it began, would have reminded Griffin about appropriate matches and family expectations, and all the reasons a girl from nowhere wasn't suitable for an Ashcroft heir. But secrets have expiration dates, and theirs ran out the night Griffin decided he didn't care about appropriate anymore. They were in her apartment. Hazel was working on a painting, music playing softly, completely lost in the work. She didn't hear him come up behind her, didn't realize he was there until his arms wrapped around her waist. "Marry me." She nearly dropped her brush. "What?" "I'm serious. Marry me. Not someday. Not when it's convenient or appropriate or when my mother approves. Now. Marry me now. Griffin, I love you." He turned her to face him. "I love that you see the world differently than everyone else I know. I love that you don't care about my last name or my money. I love who I am when I'm with you. So marry me. Please." She should have said no, should have seen all the ways this would end badly. But she was 23 and in love, and he was looking at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. Yes, they got married 2 weeks later. City Hall. No family, just them and 2 witnesses they pulled off the street. Hazel wore a vintage dress she'd altered herself. Griffin wore jeans and a smile that made him look younger than his 27 years. It wasn't the society wedding Beatrice would have planned. It wasn't the fairy tale Hazel had imagined as a girl. It was better. It was real. For 3 months, they were happy. Deliriously, impossibly happy. They lived in a modest apartment Griffin rented under a different name. Nothing like the penthouse his family expected him to occupy. He went to work during the day, played the dutiful heir, but every night he came home to her, to their life, to the world they were building together. Beatrice didn't know. Griffin's assistant covered for him. As far as his mother knew, her son was still the obedient future CEO, still unmarried, still available for whatever match she'd eventually arrange. But secrets don't stay buried forever. And Beatrice Ashcroft had built an empire on information. It was a Tuesday morning when everything fell apart. Griffin had left early for a breakfast meeting. Hazel was still in bed, fighting a wave of nausea that had been plaguing her for the past week. She'd been too scared to take a pregnancy test, too scared to confirm what her body was already telling her. The pounding on the door made her jump. When she opened it, Beatrice Ashcroft stood in the hallway like an avenging angel, 2 security guards flanking her. "Pack your things." Beatrice's voice could have frozen fire. "This farce is over." "Excuse me? Don't play stupid, dear. It's beneath even you." Beatrice pushed past her into the apartment, looking around with barely disguised disgust. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out? That my son could marry trash without me knowing?" The word hit like a slap. Hazel felt her spine straighten. "I'm not trash. And Griffin and I are married. Legally married. You can't just..." "Can't I?" Beatrice pulled out her phone, showed Hazel a document. Annulment papers. Already filed. Already approved by a judge who happens to be a very good friend of the family. "You can't do that without Griffin's consent." "Can't I?" Beatrice smiled. It was terrifying. "My son is in Paris right now. Emergency business with our European offices. He'll be there for at least a week. By the time he returns, you'll be gone and this unfortunate episode will be handled. He would never agree to this." "He already has, dear." Beatrice's voice was almost kind, pitying. He realized what a mistake this was. Realized you were never going to fit into his world. "He asked me to handle the details while he was away, so he wouldn't have to face the unpleasantness." The room spun. "No, he loves me." He loved the fantasy. Beatrice corrected. The rebellion. The little art student who made him feel bohemian and interesting. But reality has set in. You were a phase. Nothing more. "I don't believe you." Beatrice held out another paper. A severance agreement, $100,000 for Hazel to disappear quietly, to sign an NDA promising never to speak publicly about her marriage to Griffin, to vanish from his life as completely as if she'd never existed. I'm not signing that. Then I'll make your life very unpleasant. Beatrice's mask of civility dropped. I'll destroy your reputation, ensure you never work in this city again, bury you in legal fees until you're living on the street. All you have to do is disappear with a nice check for your trouble. Or refuse and lose everything anyway, just more slowly and painfully. Hazel looked at the security guards, at Beatrice's cold eyes, at the life she and Griffin had built being dismantled in real time. I need to talk to Griffin. His number has been changed. His email account has been updated. You won't be reaching him. Beatrice checked her watch. You have 2 hours to pack whatever you can carry. After that, the locks will be changed and anything left behind will be disposed of. 2 hours. 2 hours to pack up 3 months of marriage, 6 months of love, a lifetime of dreams. Fine. Hazel heard her own voice like it belonged to someone else. I'll sign your NDA, but I'm not taking your money. I don't want a single dollar from your family. Beatrice looked almost surprised. How noble. It's not noble. Hazel met her eyes. I just don't want anything from you. Not your money. Not your approval. Nothing. I'll leave. I'll sign whatever you want. But I'm not doing it because you paid me. I'm doing it so you'll leave me alone. She signed the NDA right there. Promised never to speak publicly about her marriage, about the Ashcroft family, about any of it. The document was pages long, full of legal language she barely understood. But she signed every page because she just needed it to be over. Very wise. Beatrice took the signed papers. The security will wait while you pack. Hazel packed 1 suitcase, clothes, a few books, the painting Griffin had bought from her that first week they met. She left everything else, left the furniture they'd picked out together, left the dishes, left the life. She didn't cry, not in front of Beatrice, not in front of the security guards who escorted her out like she was a criminal. She held it together through the elevator ride down, through the walk to the subway, through the train ride to Bryn's apartment across town. And then she fell apart. Bryn caught her as she collapsed in the doorway, held her while she sobbed, listened while she explained what had happened, how Griffin had left for Paris and while he was gone, his mother had erased Hazel from his life like she was a stain to be removed. We'll call him. Bryn was already reaching for her phone. We'll explain what happened. His number has changed. Hazel's voice was hollow. She made sure I can't reach him. Then we'll go to his office, show up in person, make him listen. And say what? That his mother threw me out and I let her? That I signed her NDA and left without fighting? He probably thinks exactly what she told him. That I wanted out. That I took her money and ran. You didn't take her money. He doesn't know that. Bryn held her friend's face. So we make him know. We fight. But Hazel was already shaking her head. She was so tired, so broken. And underneath the heartbreak, underneath the betrayal, was something else, something new. The nausea that had been plaguing her for a week. The exhaustion. The signs she'd been too scared to acknowledge. She might be pregnant. She couldn't tell Bryn. Not yet. Not until she knew for sure. But if she was carrying Griffin's child, if there was even a chance, then fighting Beatrice Ashcroft became impossible. Beatrice had resources Hazel couldn't imagine. Lawyers and money and power that could take a baby from its mother before it was even born. So Hazel made a choice. She would disappear. Exactly like Beatrice wanted. She would vanish from Griffin's world so completely that he'd never find her. And if she was pregnant, she'd protect that child with everything she had, even if it meant Griffin never knew he was a father. 2 weeks later, the divorce papers arrived. Griffin's signature at the bottom. The marriage annulled like it had never existed. Hazel signed them without reading the details, sent them back, and tried to figure out how to breathe around the pain. 4 weeks after that, she took a pregnancy test, sat on the bathroom floor of Bryn's apartment, and watched 2 pink lines appear. She was pregnant, with Griffin Ashcroft's baby, and he had no idea she'd ever existed. Have you ever held a secret so big it changed the shape of your life? Have you ever made a choice you knew you'd question forever but made it anyway because all the other options felt worse? Drop a comment right now and tell me, would you have told him? Would you have fought Beatrice? Or would you have done exactly what Hazel did and disappeared? Because here's the thing about survival. Sometimes it looks like cowardice. Sometimes protecting yourself and your child means running instead of fighting. And Hazel was about to learn just how much strength it takes to build a life from absolutely nothing. She was 3 months pregnant when Beatrice found her. Hazel had been so careful. Changed her last name back to her maiden name. Moved to a different neighborhood in Brooklyn. Started working cash-only jobs. Stayed completely off social media. Cut ties with everyone who'd known her and Griffin together. But Beatrice Ashcroft didn't build a fortune by accepting defeat. And she had resources Hazel couldn't begin to match. Hazel was leaving a prenatal appointment when she saw the town car idling across the street. Her stomach dropped even before Beatrice stepped out. So it's true. Beatrice looked at Hazel's small baby bump with something like triumph. You're pregnant. Leave me alone. Hazel tried to walk past her. Beatrice grabbed her arm. The grip was surprisingly strong. How much? What? How much to make this go away? Beatrice's voice was low. Clinical. 500,000? A million? Name your price. It took Hazel a moment to understand what she was suggesting. When she did, the rage was white hot. You think I'd... Everyone has a price, dear. And you're young, poor, unmarried. A child will destroy what little future you have. Take the money. Handle the situation. Move on with your life. This situation is my baby. Hazel yanked her arm free. And you don't get to decide what happens, don't I? Beatrice's eyes went cold. Because I can make your life extraordinarily difficult. I can prove you're unfit. Prove you deliberately got pregnant to trap my son. I can tie you up in legal battles until that baby is born, and then I can take it. Raise it as an Ashcroft. Give it the life you never could. You can't do that. Can't I? Beatrice smiled. It wasn't kind. I have the best lawyers in the country. You have what? Student loan debt and a part-time job? Who do you think the courts will believe? The threat settled over Hazel like ice water. Beatrice wasn't bluffing. She had the power to do exactly what she was threatening. Could take Hazel's baby. Could paint her as unstable, grasping, unfit. What do you want from me? Hazel's voice shook. Disappear. Completely. Change your name if you haven't already. Stay away from Manhattan. Raise the child quietly without ever mentioning who the father is. And in exchange, I'll leave you alone. And if I don't, then I'll see you in court. And I promise you, dear, I never lose. Beatrice handed her a card. My lawyer's number. Call him if you change your mind about the money. The offer stands for another 48 hours. Then she was gone. Back into her town car. Back to her world of power and control. Hazel stood on the Brooklyn street corner, one hand on her stomach, and understood that she'd never really had a choice at all. She disappeared. Completely. The way Beatrice had demanded. Worked 3 jobs through her pregnancy. Slept on Bryn's couch until she could afford her own tiny studio. Saved every penny for the baby that was coming. She didn't tell Griffin. Didn't try to contact him. Beatrice had made the stakes very clear. Any attempt to involve him would result in Beatrice taking her child. And Hazel would rather raise Ruby in poverty than lose her to that woman's manipulation. The pregnancy was hard. Hazel was alone, exhausted, terrified. She worked until her ankles swelled, skipped meals to save money, assembled a crib she'd found on the street, and refinished herself. Bryn was there as much as she could be, came to appointments, held Hazel's hand, promised everything would be okay even when neither of them believed it. And through it all, Hazel painted. Late at night, when she couldn't sleep, she'd paint her emotions onto canvas. The fear, the anger, the love already overwhelming her for a child she hadn't met, the grief for the man she'd lost, the future she'd imagined that would never exist. Labor started on a Tuesday. 18 hours of pain. Bryn coaching her breathing. No family, no husband. Just Hazel and her best friend, and the medical staff who'd seen 1,000 single mothers come through these doors. When they placed Ruby in her arms, Hazel understood why people said your heart could walk around outside your body. This tiny, perfect person with her father's eyes and her mother's nose. This miracle, Ruby. Hazel whispered the name through tears. The name she and Griffin had chosen together months ago, talking about someday. Her baby girl. Her reason for everything. The first year was brutal. Hazel went back to work when Ruby was 3 weeks old because she had no choice. Strapped her daughter to her chest while she worked from home doing graphic design. survived on 4 hours of sleep, learned to function in a permanent state of exhaustion. But she was also happy, watching Ruby grow, watching her personality emerge. This funny, bright, curious little girl who grabbed at everything and smiled at everyone. Hazel built a life. It wasn't the life she'd imagined, but it was theirs. She grew her freelance business, moved from the studio to a 1-bedroom apartment, started doing event planning on the side, made enough to breathe a little easier. Ruby's first word was mama. Her first steps were in their tiny living room, from the couch to Hazel's waiting arms. Her first birthday was celebrated with cupcakes Hazel made herself and decorations from the dollar store. No one knew about Griffin. Hazel never mentioned him, never explained who Ruby's father was. People assumed, and she let them. Better to let people think he was some random deadbeat than to explain the truth. Ruby started asking questions around 3 years old. Where's my daddy? All her friends at daycare had daddies. Why didn't she? Your daddy isn't in our lives. Hazel chose her words carefully, but you are so loved. You have me and Aunt Bryn, and that's our family. But where is he? Sometimes people can't be together. Even when they love each other, it's complicated, baby. Ruby accepted this the way children accept everything. With questions sometimes, but mostly with the understanding that this was just how their life was. And for 4 years, that worked. 4 years of peace. 4 years of building a life. 4 years of Hazel almost believing they were safe. Then the invitation arrived. It came in a cream-colored envelope so thick it felt like a weapon. Heavy cardstock, embossed gold lettering, the kind of stationery that cost more than Hazel's weekly grocery bill. Mr. Griffin Ashcroft requests the pleasure of your company at his marriage to Celeste Hartford. Hazel stared at it like it was a snake. Her hands shook as she read her name written in calligraphy. Table 17, dinner, and dancing to follow. No personal note, no explanation, just her name. Invited to watch the man she'd loved marry someone else. She threw it in the trash immediately. That is psychological warfare. Bryn fished it out, read it, threw it back. You're not going. I'm not going. Hazel agreed. But then her phone rang. A number she didn't recognize. When she answered, a crisp voice said, Miss Monroe? This is Elizabeth Chen from Ashcroft Events. We're coordinating the Ashcroft-Hartford wedding and we'd like to discuss your services. My services? Your event planning portfolio came highly recommended. We need additional coordination for the reception. Are you available for a consultation? And that's when Hazel understood. This wasn't a guest invitation. Beatrice had tracked her down, found her business, and was pulling her into Griffin's wedding as staff. The cruelty was breathtaking. Hazel should have refused, should have said no and dealt with whatever consequences came. But then the coordinator mentioned the contract, the penalty clause for backing out. 6 figures, more than Hazel made in 2 years. If you accept and then fail to fulfill the contract, the financial penalty is quite severe. The coordinator's voice was matter-of-fact. Mrs. Ashcroft insisted. She's very particular about reliability. Of course she did. Beatrice had found a way to trap her. Accept the job or face financial ruin. Come to the wedding or lose everything she'd built. Hazel took the job because she had Ruby to think about. Because 6 figures of debt would destroy them. Because Beatrice had backed her into a corner with no good options. But she made plans. She'd work the event, stay in the background, keep Ruby far away from the venue, get through one horrible day, and then be done with the Ashcroft family forever. The universe had other plans. The day of the wedding started wrong. Mrs. Kim, the babysitter, called at 6 in the morning. I'm so sorry. I'm in the emergency room. Kidney stones. I can't watch Ruby today. Panic set in. Hazel called 12 different babysitters. All booked. All unavailable. She had to be at the venue by 8 for setup. The wedding was at 2. She had no options. Bring her. Bryn was already at the venue, helping with setup. Just for the morning. I'll take her home before the ceremony. It'll be fine. It had to be fine. Hazel had no choice. She dressed Ruby in play clothes, packed snacks and coloring books, and drove to the Ashcroft estate in the Hamptons, the sprawling property where she'd once spent weekends feeling like an intruder, where Beatrice had looked at her with barely concealed disgust. Now she was back, catering her ex-husband's wedding to another woman, with their secret daughter in tow. The morning went smoothly. Ruby played quietly in the coordinator's office. Hazel worked setup, arranged flowers, oversaw the caterers, made sure every detail was perfect. At noon, Bryn tried to leave with Ruby. That's when the fire marshal showed up for an inspection. No one in or out until it's complete. Bryn's car wouldn't start. The ceremony was in 2 hours, and Hazel was trapped at Griffin's wedding with their 4-year-old daughter. Then the wedding coordinator found them. She looked at Ruby, and her face lit up. Perfect. You're absolutely perfect. What? Our ring bearer just canceled. The flu. But this little girl, she's exactly the right age. Mrs. Ashcroft already approved it when I showed her the photo. No. Hazel's heart stopped. Absolutely not. It's already done. The coordinator was scrolling through her phone. Look, Mrs. Ashcroft said, and I quote, "She's perfect for the role. We've already arranged the dress." This was the trap. This had always been the trap. Beatrice had planned this, had made sure Ruby would be here, would be seen, would be inserted into Griffin's wedding like a bomb waiting to detonate. I can't. Hazel was begging now. Please, you don't understand. Your contract has a clause about cooperation with last-minute changes. The coordinator's voice wasn't unkind, just matter of fact. Mrs. Ashcroft made it very clear. This isn't optional. So Hazel did the only thing she could. She knelt in front of her daughter. Ruby, baby, they need you to do something very special today. Can you be very brave for Mommy? What do I have to do? Walk down the aisle at the wedding? Carry a special pillow? It'll be like being a princess in a fairy tale. Really? Ruby's eyes went wide. I get to be in the wedding? Yeah, baby, you do. And Hazel watched them take her daughter away to get dressed, watched her own child being pulled into Beatrice's game, and had absolutely no power to stop it. The ceremony started at 2. Hazel positioned herself in the very back, hidden behind towering floral arrangements, where she could see but hopefully not be seen. 300 guests filled the cathedral. Old money, new money, society elite who'd never known Hazel existed. They chatted and laughed, programs in hand, waiting for the show to begin. The music started, a string quartet playing something classical and beautiful. Guests rose as one, and there, at the back of the cathedral, was Ruby, 4 years old, wearing a white flower girl dress that probably cost more than Hazel's rent, holding a basket of rose petals, looking tiny and perfect and terrified. Their eyes met across the distance. Hazel tried to smile, tried to communicate. You're okay, baby. You're doing great. Ruby took a careful step, then another, scattering petals with intense concentration. Every person in that cathedral was watching her, smiling, murmuring about how adorable she was. No one knew. No one saw it. The way her eyes were exactly like the groom's. The way her nose had his aristocratic slope. The way she moved with his same careful precision. Ruby made it to the front. A coordinator guided her to a seat, right next to Beatrice Ashcroft, who placed a possessive hand on the child's shoulder, staking her claim. Hazel couldn't breathe. Then Celeste appeared, beautiful beyond measure. Ice blonde hair, a dress that cost more than Hazel made in a year. Everything Hazel had never been and never could be. The ceremony began. Hazel didn't hear the words. She watched Ruby sitting next to Beatrice, watched Griffin at the altar, oblivious, watched her past and present collide in this one impossible moment. Griffin said, "I do." Celeste said, "I do." They kissed. Everyone applauded. And Hazel watched her ex-husband marry another woman while their daughter sat 15 feet away. The reception was even worse. The Ashcroft estate transformed into a winter wonderland. White roses everywhere, crystal chandeliers, a 20-piece orchestra, champagne flowing like water. Hazel tried to collect Ruby and leave. The coordinator blocked her. Mrs. Ashcroft wants family photos with the flower girl. Of course she did. Hazel brought Ruby to the terrace where the wedding party was gathering. Griffin was there, laughing with his groomsmen. He hadn't seen Hazel yet. 5 years. 5 years since she'd been close enough to hear his voice. He looked the same. Different. Older. More polished. But still fundamentally him. Still the man she'd loved with everything she had. Ruby ran ahead, straight to where the photographer was setting up. Griffin noticed her, smiled, knelt to her level. "Hey there, flower girl. You did such a great job. Thank you." Ruby's shyness made her voice small. "What's your name?" Ruby. The name hung in the air, the name they'd chosen together. Griffin's expression flickered. Did he remember? Did he wonder? Beautiful name. He smiled. For a beautiful flower girl. Hazel watched from 10 feet away, watched him interact with their daughter, compliment her, make her smile, and have absolutely no idea who she was. "Let's get some photos." The photographer started arranging people. "Can we get the flower girl between the bride and groom?" This was hell. This was actual hell. Ruby stood between Griffin and Celeste, looking up at them with innocent admiration. Griffin's hand came to rest on her shoulder. Natural, paternal, a gesture he didn't even think about. Perfect. The photographer was snapping away. Now just the groom and flower girl. Griffin lifted Ruby into his arms. She giggled. He was so tall, so nice. She liked him immediately. "So, Ruby," he adjusted her in his arms. "Do you like weddings? This is my first one. It's very fancy. It is very fancy." He laughed. "Are you here with your family?" "My mommy's here. She's working." "She works at weddings?" "Sometimes." Ruby was warming up now. "She works lots of places. She works very, very hard. I bet she does." Something in Griffin's voice softened. "To raise such a great kid. She says I'm her favorite person in the whole world. I bet you are." Hazel watched this exchange from behind the photographer, dying inside. This was her nightmare and her dream all at once. Griffin meeting Ruby, being gentle with her, making her laugh, and having no idea she was his. The photos wrapped up. Griffin set Ruby down, patted her head. "Thank you for being such a good sport, Miss Ruby." "You're welcome, Mr. Griffin. Just Griffin is fine." "Okay." Ruby grinned up at him, showing the gap where her front tooth was growing in, and that's when it happened. The moment that would change everything. The moment Hazel had been dreading and expecting in equal measure. The reception began. Dinner service, toasts, the first dance. Griffin and Celeste spinning across the floor while everyone watched and smiled. Hazel kept Ruby close, tried to stay invisible, counted down the minutes until they could leave. Then the bandleader made an announcement. "And now, Mr. Ashcroft has requested a special dance with our beautiful flower girl, Ruby." The room erupted in appreciative applause. What a sweet gesture. How charming. Hazel felt the world tilt. Griffin walked to where Ruby sat with Bryn, extended his hand. "Would you like to dance with me?" Ruby looked at Bryn, at Hazel across the room, then back at Griffin. "Okay." He lifted her onto his feet, her tiny shoes resting on his dress shoes. The orchestra began a waltz, and Griffin Ashcroft danced with his daughter at his wedding to another woman. 300 people watched, smiled, thought it was adorable. Only 2 people in that room understood what was really happening. Hazel, dying quietly behind the champagne station, and Beatrice, watching from the head table with cold satisfaction. This was the revenge. This was the punishment. Making Hazel watch Griffin fall for Ruby without knowing. Making her stand silent while the secret she'd kept for 4 years played out in front of hundreds of witnesses. The song continued. Griffin said something that made Ruby throw her head back laughing. That laugh. The same one Hazel heard every morning. The same one she'd loved on Griffin 5 years ago. Father and daughter, dancing together, connected by blood neither of them knew about. The song ended. Griffin bowed. Ruby curtsied. He set her down gently, smiled at her like she'd made his entire day. "Thank you for the dance, Miss Ruby. Thank you." She ran back toward Bryn, chattering about how fun it was. And Hazel knew she had to leave. Right now, before this got any worse. She collected Ruby, made excuses to the coordinator, started heading for the exit. "Hazel?" The voice froze her in place. Griffin's voice, saying her name. After 5 years of silence, her name in his mouth. She turned slowly. He stood 10 feet away, staring at her like he'd seen a ghost. "What are you doing here?" "Working." Hazel forced her voice to stay steady. "Congratulations on your wedding." Griffin moved closer, his eyes scanning her face like he was trying to confirm she was real. "I didn't know you'd be here. I didn't." His voice trailed off as his gaze dropped to Ruby, who was holding Hazel's hand, half hidden behind her mother's legs. Ruby peeked out at him. Hi again. Hi. Griffin's voice had gone strange, distant. He looked at Ruby, really looked at her. Then back at Hazel. His expression was changing, confusion giving way to something else, something that looked like dawning horror. Hazel saw the exact moment the pieces started fitting together in his mind. She watched him do the math, watched his eyes move from Ruby's face to hers and back again. How old is she? The question came out rough, desperate, like he already knew the answer, but needed to hear it anyway. Griffin, not here. Hazel's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might break through her chest. Please. How old is she, Hazel? Ruby pressed closer to her mother, sensing the tension, the danger in the air. Mommy, who's that? This is... Hazel's voice failed. This is an old friend, baby. Why don't you go find Aunt Bryn? But I want to stay with you. Ruby, please. Something in her mother's tone made Ruby obey. She let go of Hazel's hand and walked slowly toward where Bryn stood, near the entrance, looking back over her shoulder with worried eyes. When she was gone, Griffin spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. How old? 4. She just turned 4. The color drained from his face. 4. 5 years since we divorced. You were, yes, pregnant. When you left, when your mother had me escorted out, yes. When you were in Paris and couldn't be bothered to answer my calls, yes. When I signed those divorce papers with your signature at the bottom, yes. I was pregnant, and you never told me. His voice was rising now, drawing attention from nearby guests. You never thought to mention that you were carrying my child? How exactly was I supposed to do that? Hazel's own anger was surfacing, breaking through the fear. Your mother changed your number, had your email blocked. She threatened me, Griffin, told me she'd take my baby if I ever tried to contact you. So excuse me for trying to protect my daughter from a family that had already proven they'd destroy anyone who didn't fit their perfect mold. My daughter. The words seemed to break something in him. You mean our daughter? No. Hazel stepped closer, her voice fierce. Mine. I'm the one who was pregnant and alone. I'm the one who worked 3 jobs to keep a roof over our heads. I'm the one who's been there for every fever, every nightmare, every milestone. You don't get to claim her just because you finally figured out she exists. I didn't know she existed because you kept her from me. I kept her safe. From me. His voice cracked. You kept my own child safe from me. From your mother. From your family. From people who see children as pawns in power games instead of human beings who deserve to be protected. The commotion was drawing a crowd now. Guests turning to look, whispering, pulling out phones. Griffin. A woman's voice cut through the tension. Cool. Controlled. Celeste appeared beside them, still in her wedding dress, her face carefully blank. I think we should take this somewhere private. Celeste. Griffin looked at his bride. His brand new wife. I have a daughter. I heard. Her voice was remarkably steady, which is why we need to move this conversation away from 300 guests with cameras. She was right. Phones were out. People were recording. This was about to become a scandal that would dominate society pages for months. My office. Griffin's voice had taken on that command tone. The CEO making decisions. Now. I'm not going anywhere with you. Hazel started to turn away. I'm taking my daughter and leaving. Like hell you are. Griffin grabbed her arm. Not gently. You don't get to drop this bomb and just walk away. Let go of me. Not until we talk. Not until you explain why you've been hiding my daughter for 4 years. 5 years. A new voice joined the conversation. Cold as winter. She's been hiding the truth for 5 years. Beatrice Ashcroft appeared like a avenging angel, diamonds at her throat, ice in her eyes, looking at Hazel with undisguised loathing. Mother. Griffin's voice was dangerous. What do you know about this? Everything, darling. Beatrice's smile was razor sharp. I've known since before the child was born. Did you really think I wouldn't keep tabs on the unsuitable girl who tried to trap my son? The world seemed to stop spinning. Griffin's hand dropped from Hazel's arm. You knew. Of course I knew. Beatrice examined her manicure. I suspected the moment she left, confirmed it when she started showing up to prenatal appointments. I've been monitoring the situation ever since. Monitoring. Griffin's voice had gone deadly quiet. You knew I had a child and you said nothing? I was protecting you from a gold digger's trap. She's 4 years old. 4 years of her life I've missed. 4 years of being a father and you." His voice rose to a shout that made guests jump. "You kept that from me?" "I did what was necessary." "Necessary?" Griffin looked at his mother like he'd never seen her before. "You destroyed my marriage. You kept my daughter from me. You manipulated every aspect of my life, and you call it necessary? Your marriage was a mistake. That girl was never suitable. Stop calling her that." Griffin's voice could have cut steel. "Her name is Hazel. And she's the woman I loved, the woman you drove away with your lies and manipulation. I saved you from a fortune hunter. She never took your money. Every word was bitten off. Sharp, furious. You offered her $100,000 to disappear, and she refused it. Offered her $500,000 to terminate her pregnancy, and she refused that too. So exactly what part of that sounds like a gold digger to you, Mother?" Beatrice's composure cracked, just slightly. "I was protecting the family legacy. By stealing my child? By lying to me for 5 years? What legacy is that exactly? The one where Ashcrofts destroy everyone who gets close to them?" "Griffin." Celeste's voice was quiet but firm. "Not here. Please, your guests." He looked around, at the crowd of people watching his life implode, at the cameras recording every word, at his wedding reception turned into a public disaster. "Fine." He looked at Hazel. "You have 2 choices. Come to my office right now, and we have this conversation. Or I call my lawyers and file for custody before you make it back to Brooklyn. You can't. Watch me. I've missed 5 years of my daughter's life. I'm not missing another day." Hazel felt the trap closing, the same way it had been closing since that invitation arrived. Since Beatrice had orchestrated this entire nightmare, she could run, breach the contract, face the financial penalties and probably a custody battle she couldn't afford to fight. Or she could walk into that office and face the man she'd loved and the family she'd spent 5 years hiding from. Fine. Her voice was steady, despite the terror racing through her veins. "One conversation. Then I'm taking Ruby home. We'll see about that." They moved through the reception like a funeral procession. Griffin, Celeste, Hazel, Beatrice, guests parting for them, phones capturing every moment. Tomorrow's headlines already writing themselves. Bryn intercepted them at the door. "I'm coming with you." "No." Hazel squeezed her friend's hand. "Stay with Ruby. Don't let her out of your sight. If anything happens, if anyone tries to take her, you call the police. You understand me? Hazel, promise me." "I promise." Bryn's eyes were fierce. "But I'm calling a lawyer right now. You don't go in there unprotected. Do it." The office was exactly as Hazel remembered. Mahogany and leather, old money preserved in book bindings and crystal decanters. The room where she'd once sat across from Griffin, planning their future, believing love was enough. The door closed behind them with the finality of a vault ceiling. "I want a paternity test," Beatrice announced before anyone else could speak. "Before we discuss anything, we establish paternity. Unnecessary." Griffin's voice was flat. "She's mine. I know she's mine. You can't possibly know that from looking at her. Can't I?" He pulled out his phone, scrolled to the photos from earlier. "Look at her, Mother. Really look." He held up the image of him and Ruby during their dance, side by side. The resemblance undeniable when framed together. The silence that followed was deafening. "She has my eyes." Griffin's voice was rough with emotion. "My father's jawline. Your mother's nose. She's an Ashcroft through and through. So don't stand there and tell me I can't know my own daughter." "Even so," Beatrice recovered quickly. "Legally, we need confirmation before we discuss custody arrangements." "Custody?" Hazel's laugh was sharp. "You think you can walk into my daughter's life after 5 years and demand custody? She's my daughter, too." "Is she?" Hazel moved closer to him, her fear transforming into rage. "Because from where I'm standing, a father is someone who shows up, someone who's there for scraped knees and bad dreams and first days of school. You haven't been any of those things. You didn't even know she existed until an hour ago. Because you never told me. Because your mother made it impossible." Hazel turned to Beatrice. Tell him what you said to me when I was 3 months pregnant." Beatrice's expression remained unchanged. "I offered you financial compensation to handle the situation quietly." "Handle the situation?" Hazel repeated. You told me to terminate my pregnancy. You offered me $500,000 to abort Griffin's child. And when I refused, you threatened to take her from me the moment she was born. You said you'd prove I was unfit, that you'd bury me in legal fees, that I'd never see my baby again because I didn't have the resources to fight you. Griffin had gone very still. Is this true? I was protecting our family. Answer the question, Mother. Did you tell her to abort my child? I gave her options. Did you threaten to take the baby? Beatrice lifted her chin. I informed her of the legal realities, that an Ashcroft child deserves to be raised with certain standards, that she wasn't equipped to provide those standards, that the courts would agree with me. You threatened to steal my daughter. Griffin's voice shook. Before she was even born, you planned to take her. For her own good. For her own good? He laughed. It sounded broken. You don't even see it, do you? You don't see how twisted this is. How wrong. I was thinking of the child's future. No. You were thinking about control, about maintaining your grip on this family, about making sure nothing happened that you didn't orchestrate and approve. Someone has to maintain standards. Standards. Griffin's voice rose again. You destroyed my marriage, kept my daughter from me, manipulated every aspect of my life. Those aren't standards, Mother. That's abuse. The word hung in the air. Beatrice flinched. Actually flinched. Celeste had been silent until now. She spoke quietly from her position by the window. She knew about Ruby before the wedding. What? Griffin turned to her. Your mother knew. Celeste's voice was eerily calm. She's the one who insisted Ruby be the flower girl, who arranged for the original ring-bearer to cancel, who made sure Hazel would be here, trapped by contract, forced to watch you dance with your daughter without knowing who she was. Griffin looked at his mother. Tell me that's not true. Beatrice said nothing. Her silence was answer enough. Why? His voice broke on the word. Why would you do that? Because she needed to understand her place. Beatrice's mask finally dropped, showing the cruelty underneath. Because you needed to see what inappropriate choices cost. Because I wanted that girl to watch you build a proper life with a suitable wife while her bastard child served your wedding. Get out. Griffin's voice was ice. Get out of my office. Get out of my house. Get out of my life. Griffin, I said get out. You're done. No contact with me. No contact with my daughter. I'll make sure you're financially comfortable, but you are removed from all company decisions, all family trusts, all aspects of my life, effective immediately. You can't do that. Beatrice's composure was cracking. I'm your mother, and you've spent my entire life manipulating me, controlling me, destroying anything and anyone that threatened your vision of what an Ashcroft should be. Well, I'm done being controlled. I'm done being your puppet, and I'm done letting you hurt the people I love. This is about her. Beatrice pointed at Hazel. She's turned you against your own family. No, Mother, you did that yourself. 5 years ago when you lied to me about why my marriage ended, and again today when you orchestrated this nightmare. Now get out before I have security escort you. Beatrice looked at Celeste. Surely you see how inappropriate this is. On your wedding day. My wedding day. Celeste's voice was surprisingly gentle. That's been one revelation after another. I discovered my husband has a secret daughter, that his mother manipulated all of us, that the marriage I just entered was built on lies and expectations rather than love. So yes, Mrs. Ashcroft, I see how inappropriate this is. All of it. Beatrice left without another word. The door closing behind her felt like the end of an era. The silence that followed was suffocating. Celeste spoke first. I think we need to establish some basic facts before emotions take over completely. Who are you? Hazel looked at this woman, this stranger who just married Griffin. Why are you being so calm about this? Because someone has to be. Celeste settled into a chair like she was at a business meeting rather than the implosion of her wedding day. Griffin, do you believe Ruby is your daughter? Yes. Hazel, is Griffin Ruby's biological father? Yes. Good. That's established. Celeste looked between them. Griffin, you've been married to me for approximately 6 hours. In that time, you've discovered you have a 4-year-old daughter your mother kept hidden from you, that your first marriage was destroyed through manipulation, that Hazel has been raising your child alone under threat from your family. Does that sum it up? Yes. And Hazel, you've spent 5 years protecting Ruby from a family you believed would take her from you. You signed NDAs under duress. You disappeared to keep her safe. You've built a life as a single mother with no support. Correct? Yes. Hazel was starting to see why Griffin had married this woman. She was formidable. Then here's what I propose. Celeste pulled out her phone. I'm texting my lawyer. Hazel, you need representation before we discuss custody or support or anything legal. Griffin, you need to verify paternity not because you doubt it, but because courts will require it. And she paused. I need to figure out how to gracefully exit a marriage I should never have entered. Celeste, Griffin's voice was pained. I'm sorry. Don't be. She met his eyes. We both know why we got married. You were trying to move on from something you never processed. I was following expectations I never questioned. Your mother approved of me, and we both let that matter more than whether we actually loved each other. She gestured to the situation. This is just bringing the truth to the surface faster than we expected. You don't have to leave me because of this. Yes, I do. Celeste's smile was sad. Because you're in love with her. You've been in love with her this entire time. And I deserve better than being someone's consolation prize. I did care about you. But caring isn't love. And I'd rather be alone than be with someone who wishes I was someone else. She stood. I'm going to make some calls. You two need to talk. Really talk. Without lawyers or threats or 5 years of hurt getting in the way. How are you so understanding about this? Hazel asked. I just destroyed your wedding day. No. Celeste looked at her. Beatrice destroyed my wedding day. You're just the catalyst that exposed what was already broken. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry. For what you've been through. For what Griffin's family did to you. No one deserves that. Then she was gone, leaving Hazel and Griffin alone for the first time in 5 years. Griffin sank into a chair, put his head in his hands. I have a daughter. Yes, a 4-year-old daughter who I've never met, who doesn't know I exist. She knows you exist. She just doesn't know you're her father. Hazel stayed standing, stayed ready to run if necessary. I told her that her daddy wasn't in our lives, that it was complicated, that she was loved. What's her full name? Ruby Charlotte Monroe. Charlotte. That was my grandmother's name. I know. I thought. Hazel's voice caught. I thought you should have some part of her, even if you never knew. Tell me about her. His eyes were desperate. Please, tell me who she is. So Hazel did. She told him about Ruby's first word, about how she'd learned to walk by, pulling herself up on the coffee table and refusing to give up, no matter how many times she fell. About her obsession with dinosaurs and art and anything that sparkled. About her kindness, the way she shared her snacks with kids at daycare, even when she didn't have much. About her laughter, her curiosity, her fierce little spirit that reminded Hazel of Griffin every single day. She sounds incredible. Griffin was crying now, not hiding it, just letting tears fall, and I've missed all of it. I'm sorry. The words came out before Hazel could stop them. I'm sorry you missed it. But I'm not sorry I protected her. I know. He wiped his face. I understand why you did it. My mother is. He laughed bitterly. She's exactly who you thought she was. Worse, maybe. I just never saw it clearly until today. What happens now? Hazel asked the question she'd been dreading. I want to know her. His voice was firm. I want to be her father, not just a name on a birth certificate or a check in the mail. I want to be present in her life. And if I say no, then I'll fight you in court, and I'll win because I have resources you can't match. He held up a hand before she could speak. But I don't want it to be like that. I don't want our daughter caught in the middle of a custody war. I don't want to hurt you any more than I already have. You didn't hurt me. Hazel's voice was quiet. Your mother did. I let her. That's the same thing. He stood, moved closer but didn't touch her. I should have fought for you 5 years ago. Should have questioned why you suddenly wanted out. Should have called you myself instead of letting Mother handle everything. I was a coward, and our daughter paid the price for it. We both did. Yeah, we did. He looked at her, really looked at her. You're different. So are you. Are you happy? Hazel, are you happy with the life you've built? The question caught her off guard. I don't know if happy is the right word. I'm surviving. building something. Ruby is the best thing that's ever happened to me. But do I wish things had been different? Do I wish she had a father? Do I wish I hadn't spent 5 years looking over my shoulder waiting for your mother to take her? Yes. To all of it. I want to change that. Not the past. I can't fix the past. But the future. Let me be part of her future. Under what terms? Whatever you're comfortable with. Supervised visits. Slow introductions. I'll go to therapy to work through the mess my mother left in my head. I'll prove I'm serious about this. About her. He paused. About making things right. You can't make this right, Griffin. You can't get back 5 years. I know. But I can do better going forward. I can be the father Ruby deserves. If you let me. Hazel wanted to say no. Wanted to protect the life she'd built. The safe, small world where Ruby was hers and hers alone. But looking at Griffin's face, at the genuine devastation there, at the man who was finally standing up to his mother after a lifetime of control, she couldn't. Okay. We can try. Slowly. Carefully. With boundaries and rules and the understanding that if you hurt her, if you disappoint her, if you're anything less than consistent and present, I'm done. You don't get second chances with a 4-year-old's heart. I understand. And therapy. You go to therapy. You work through all the ways your mother messed you up. Because I won't let you pass that damage on to our daughter, already planning to call someone tomorrow. He almost smiled. What else? Your mother doesn't get unsupervised access. Ever. She sees Ruby with me present, or not at all. Agreed. Honestly, I'm not sure she'll be seeing Ruby at all. What she did today, what she's done for 5 years, that's unforgivable. Don't make promises about cutting off your mother just to impress me. Hazel warned. That's your relationship to figure out. I'm not trying to impress you. I'm trying to protect my daughter, and myself, from someone who sees people as chess pieces instead of human beings. Okay then. Hazel moved toward the door. I'm taking Ruby home now. We'll talk later about how to introduce you properly. As her father, not as the nice man from the wedding. When can I see her again? Give me a week. Let me prepare her. Let me figure out how to explain this in a way a 4-year-old can understand. A week. He nodded. Okay, I can do a week. She was almost out the door when he spoke again. Hazel? She turned back. I loved you. 5 years ago. I loved you more than I've loved anything before or since. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to fight for us. I'm sorry I believed my mother's lies. I'm sorry for all of it. I know. Her voice was soft. I loved you too. But love wasn't enough then, and it's not what this is about now. This is about Ruby. Just Ruby. I know. But I needed you to hear it anyway. She left before he could see her cry. Bryn was waiting with Ruby in the parking lot. The little girl was asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the day's excitement. What happened? Bryn demanded. Everything. Hazel buckled herself into the passenger seat. Let's just go home. The drive back to Brooklyn was silent, except for Ruby's soft snoring. Hazel stared out the window, watching the Hamptons give way to the city, watching the world where Griffin lived disappear in the rearview mirror. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. It's Griffin. Celeste gave me your number. I'm sorry for how today went. For all of it. Can we talk soon? Please? She typed back. 1 week. I'll call you. His response was immediate. Thank you. For everything. For raising her. For being strong enough for both of us. For giving me a chance I don't deserve. She didn't respond. Just put her phone away and closed her eyes. Have you ever made a decision that terrified you? Have you ever given someone a second chance when every instinct told you to run? Drop a comment right now. Tell me, should Hazel trust Griffin? Should she let him into Ruby's life? Or should she protect what she's built and keep him at arm's length? Because here's what happens next. The part most stories don't show you. The hard work, the slow rebuilding, the daily choice to trust or to guard. The messy, complicated reality of two people trying to co-parent when they're not quite past the hurt that tore them apart. If you're still watching, if this story has grabbed you, I need you to hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Love and Twilights with Dr. Phillips. Turn on notifications. Because we're about to jump forward. We're about to see whether Griffin can back up his promises with action. Whether Hazel can learn to trust again. Whether Ruby can have the father she deserves. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's trying to decide whether to forgive, someone who's co-parenting through pain, someone who needs to know that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is give people the chance to prove they've changed. And comment below. Tell me what you're feeling. Tell me what you'd do. Tell me if I'm crazy for believing some people can actually transform. Because transformation is what comes next. 1 week later, Hazel sat Griffin down in her tiny Brooklyn apartment. The contrast to his world couldn't have been starker. Her thrift store furniture, her paintings on the walls, the place she'd built with nothing but determination and love. This is where you live. He looked around, not with judgment, with something that looked like awe. This is home. She gestured for him to sit. Ruby's at a play date. We have an hour before she gets back. Okay. He sat on the edge of her second-hand couch, looking completely out of place and somehow perfect anyway. Here's how this is going to work. Hazel had rehearsed this speech 100 times. You're going to meet her as my friend first. Someone I used to know who wants to get to know her. We're not telling her you're her father until she's comfortable with you, until you've proven you're going to stick around. How long will that take? However long it takes. Could be weeks. Could be months. She sets the pace, not us. Understood. You'll see her twice a week to start. Dinner's here, with me present. If that goes well, we'll add weekend activities. Still supervised. Still with me there. Okay. No gifts. Hazel's voice was firm. No toys or expensive things, or trying to buy her affection. You show up. You spend time. You listen to her. That's it. No gifts. He nodded. What does she like? What should I know? Dinosaurs. Art. Anything that sparkles. She's shy at first, but warms up quickly. She asks a million questions about everything. She's kind. Almost too kind sometimes. She'll share her last cookie with someone even if she's still hungry. Like you. Griffin's voice was soft. Like both of us, maybe. Hazel stood. She'll be here in 30 minutes. Are you ready? No. He laughed nervously. Terrified, actually. What if she doesn't like me? Then you keep showing up until she does. That's what being a parent is. Showing up even when it's hard. The doorbell rang exactly 29 minutes later. Ruby burst in, full of stories about her playdate, before stopping short when she saw Griffin. Oh, hi. Hi, Ruby. Griffin stayed seated, not wanting to overwhelm her. Remember me? You're the man from the fancy wedding. You danced with me. I am. Your mom and I are old friends. I was hoping we could be friends too. Ruby looked at her mother. Hazel nodded encouragement. Okay. Ruby moved closer, cautious but curious. Do you like dinosaurs? I don't know much about them, Griffin admitted. But I'd love to learn. That was apparently the right answer. Ruby launched into an explanation of why velociraptors were misunderstood, and actually had feathers and were much smaller than the movies showed. Griffin listened like she was presenting a doctoral thesis. Hazel watched them from the kitchen. Watched her daughter warm to this man who was a stranger and also her father. Watched Griffin look at Ruby like she was the most important person in the world. Maybe this could work. Maybe. The next 3 months were a masterclass in patience. Griffin showed up every Tuesday and Thursday for dinner. Never late. Never canceling. He'd sit on Hazel's floor and play dinosaurs. He'd listen to Ruby's stories about daycare. He'd help with her bath time, learning how to navigate tangles and tears. He didn't try to buy her affection. Didn't show up with expensive toys or promises of trips to Disneyland. He just showed up. Consistently. Proving through action what words couldn't convey. Hazel watched him transform. Watched the polished CEO disappear and someone more real emerge. He'd arrive in jeans instead of suits. He'd get paint in his hair during art time. He'd make silly voices reading bedtime stories. And slowly, carefully, Ruby fell in love with him. Can Griffin come to my birthday party? She asked one morning, 3 months into their arrangement. Do you want him there? Yeah, he's nice. He makes good pancakes. They'd started Saturday breakfasts. Griffin making pancakes in Hazel's tiny kitchen, while Ruby sat on the counter, chattering about everything and nothing. It had become their tradition. Then, we'll invite him. Hazel made a mental note to talk to Griffin separately about the party, about whether it was time to tell Ruby the truth. That conversation happened 2 days later. Griffin arrived for Tuesday dinner looking nervous. I need to ask you something, he said, after Ruby had gone to bed. Okay, when do we tell her? That I'm her father? Hazel had been thinking about this constantly. When is the right time? How do you explain to a 4-year-old that the friend she's grown to love is actually her daddy? I don't know, she admitted. I've never done this before. Neither have I. Griffin sat across from her at the kitchen table. But she's asking questions. Last week she asked if I had kids. I told her no, and she looked so disappointed. Like she wanted me to say yes. To say her. What did you say? That I hope to be a dad someday. That it was something I wanted very much. Hazel felt her chest tighten. We could tell her soon. After her birthday. Give her the party first, then sit her down and explain. Explain how exactly? Griffin's voice was gentle. Not challenging. Just asking. We tell her the truth. That I loved her daddy very much. That circumstances kept us apart. That he didn't know about her, but now he does. That he loves her and wants to be her dad. Will she understand? She's 4. Probably not completely. But kids are resilient. They accept what we tell them. Okay. Griffin reached across the table. Stopped just short of taking her hand. Thank you. For this. For letting me in. For giving me a chance to know her. You've earned it. Hazel pulled her hand back. Not ready for that kind of contact yet. You've shown up. Been consistent. That's what matters. The birthday party was held at a local park. Nothing fancy. Just Ruby's friends from daycare, Bryn and Griffin. They played on the playground. Ate cupcakes Hazel had made. Sang happy birthday while Ruby beamed. Griffin had asked what to get her. Hazel had said one small thing. Nothing expensive. He'd shown up with a set of paintbrushes. Good ones, but not outrageously priced. And a card that said, "For the artist who taught me to see color everywhere." Ruby had hugged him, thrown her little arms around his neck, and held on. Thank you, Griffin. Over her head, his eyes met Hazel's. There were tears in them. That night, after the party, after Griffin had left, Ruby asked the question Hazel had been expecting. Mommy, why don't I have a daddy like the other kids? Hazel sat on her daughter's bed, smoothed back her dark curls. You do have a daddy, baby. He just hasn't been able to be with us until now. Why not? It's complicated. But here's what you need to know. Your daddy loves you very much. He didn't know about you for a long time, but now he does, and he wants to be part of your life. Ruby's eyes went wide. Do I know him? Yes, you know him. Is it Griffin? Children. They saw everything adults tried to hide. Yes, baby. Griffin is your daddy. Really? Ruby sat up. Really, really? Really, really? Hazel felt tears on her cheeks. Is that okay? Is that why he comes to see us? Because he's my daddy? Yes. And he wants to be my daddy? Like for real? For real. Ruby processed this. Then, can I call him Daddy? I think he'd like that very much. The next Tuesday, Griffin arrived for dinner. Ruby met him at the door, looked up at him with those storm-gray eyes. Hi, Daddy. Griffin dropped to his knees, pulled her into his arms. Hi, baby girl. He was crying. Ruby patted his face. It's okay. Mommy said you didn't know about me, but you know now, so it's okay. I love you so much. His voice broke. I'm so sorry I wasn't here before, but I'm here now. I'm going to be here from now on. Okay. Ruby hugged him back. Can we have pancakes for dinner? Through tears and laughter. Absolutely. Whatever you want. Watching them, Hazel felt something shift. Not forgiveness, not quite. But the beginning of letting go. The start of believing that maybe, just maybe, some things could be rebuilt. The next 6 months were a study in co-parenting. Griffin and Hazel worked out a formal schedule. Every Tuesday and Thursday for dinner. Every other weekend. Holidays split evenly. It was businesslike, practical. But there were moments, small moments that felt like something more. The time Ruby got sick and Griffin showed up at 2 a.m. with medicine and stayed. The whole night, helping Hazel through fever checks and vomit cleanup. The time Hazel's business nearly went under and Griffin offered connections, not money. Introductions to people who could hire her, not handouts that would make her uncomfortable. The time they both attended Ruby's preschool graduation and sat together, watching their daughter receive her certificate, both of them crying like she'd graduated Harvard. Griffin went to therapy, told Hazel about it sometimes, about unpacking his mother's control, about learning to set boundaries. about grieving the relationship with Beatrice that had never been healthy but was all he'd known. Beatrice tried to contact him multiple times. He refused every attempt, made it clear that until she apologized to Hazel and committed to therapy, there would be no relationship. She never apologized. Pride, apparently, was stronger than love for her grandson. Celeste divorced Griffin quietly, gracefully. 6 months after their wedding, it was over. Society pages speculated, but she never spoke publicly about what had happened. Just moved on. Eventually started dating someone new, someone who looked at her the way Griffin never had. And through it all, Hazel watched Griffin become a father. The real kind. Not the type who showed up for photo ops, but the kind who knew Ruby's favorite bedtime story, who could braid her hair, who understood that sometimes when she said she was fine, she wasn't. 1 year after the wedding, exactly 1 year to the day, Griffin showed up for Tuesday dinner looking nervous. "I wanted to ask you something," he said after Ruby was in bed. "Okay." Hazel had learned to read his nervous looks. "This was something big. There's a charity gala next month for children's literacy. I'm on the board. It's probably going to be boring. Black tie, lots of speeches, but," he took a breath, "would you come as my date?" The question hung between them. Griffin, just to see, just to test if maybe there could be something more than co-parenting. "I'm not asking for promises, just one night, to see if what we had is completely gone or if maybe there's something there worth exploring. I don't know if I can do that." Hazel's voice was honest, vulnerable. "I'm still scared, still hurt, still not sure I can trust that you won't disappear again." "I know, and I understand if the answer is no, but I've been in therapy for a year. I've worked on myself, on understanding why I let my mother control me, on becoming someone who makes his own choices. And my choice is you. It's always been you. What about Ruby? If we try this and it doesn't work, she's the one who gets hurt. Then we're careful. We're adults about it. We make sure she knows that whether we're together or not, we're both her parents, both committed to her, no matter what." Hazel looked at this man, this person who'd been Griffin Ashcroft, heir and CEO, and was now just Griffin. Father, person trying to be better, person who'd spent a year proving he could change. "One date." Her voice was barely audible. "We go to your gala. We see how it feels. No promises beyond that." His smile was like sunrise. "One date. I can work with that." The gala was everything Griffin had promised. Boring speeches, rubber chicken, the same society people who'd witnessed his wedding disaster a year ago. But Hazel wore a dress she'd designed herself, held her head high. And when Griffin introduced her as his date, as Ruby's mother, as someone important to him, she didn't shrink. They danced, really danced for the first time since those early dates 5 years ago. "I've missed this," Griffin said quietly. "Holding you. Don't," Hazel warned. "Don't go too fast. Sorry." He backed off immediately. "One step at a time. One step at a time," she agreed. But when he drove her home, when they stood outside her apartment building, when he asked if he could kiss her, she surprised herself. Yes, it was gentle, tentative, a kiss that tasted like possibility and second chances and all the things they'd lost finding their way back. When they pulled apart, Hazel was crying. "Was that okay?" Griffin looked worried. "Yeah," she laughed through tears. "Yeah, that was okay. Can I do it again?" "Not yet." She smiled. "But maybe someday. I can wait." His voice was sure. "I've got time." And he did. He waited another 6 months. 6 months of slow dating, of dinners after Ruby went to bed, of carefully stolen moments that didn't interfere with parenting, of learning each other again as different people. 6 months of Hazel learning to trust, to believe that Griffin had actually changed, that he would choose her and Ruby over his mother's expectations, that he could be the man she needed him to be. It wasn't perfect. They fought sometimes, about parenting styles, about boundaries, about the past that still hurt even when they were trying to move forward. But they also laughed, talked until 3 a.m., built something new from the pieces of what had broken 2 years after the wedding. 2 years exactly. They were in Central Park, Ruby running ahead, chasing pigeons, wearing a purple coat Hazel had made. "I love you." Griffin said it simply, no drama, just truth. "I love you, and I love our daughter, and I love the life we're building, and I want to ask you something. Hazel's heart started racing. Griffin, not what you're thinking. He smiled. I'm not proposing. Not yet. You're not ready, and I understand that. But I want to ask, when you are ready, when you can imagine trusting me that much again, would you consider it? Consider giving us another chance. Not picking up where we left off, but starting fresh. As the people we are now. Hazel looked at him. At this man who'd proven himself over 2 years. Who showed up for his daughter without fail. Who'd cut off his toxic mother. Who'd gone to therapy and done the work and become someone worthy of a second chance. Ask me again in 6 months, she said, when you've kept every single promise for 3 years straight. His smile was radiant. I can do that. And he did. 3 years to the day after that disastrous wedding. 3 years of consistent fatherhood. 3 years of slow, careful relationship building. 3 years of proving he'd changed. Griffin proposed, not with $1 million ring or a grand gesture. Just the two of them on Hazel's apartment building roof. Ruby asleep downstairs with Bryn. The city lights spread below them. I know I don't deserve you. His voice shook. I know I hurt you. I know 3 years doesn't erase 5 years of pain. But I love you. I love our daughter. I love the family we've built. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of that love. Will you marry me? Hazel looked at the simple ring in his hand, looked at his face, looked at the future stretching out before them. She thought about the girl she'd been, young, in love, believing love conquered all. She thought about the woman she'd become, strong, independent, a mother who'd built a life from nothing. And she thought about Ruby, sleeping downstairs, happy, loved, with 2 parents who adored her and each other. Yes, the word came out sure, strong, yes, but we do this my way. Small wedding, just us and the people who matter. No society spectacle, no Ashcroft production, just real, whatever you want. Griffin was crying, laughing, putting the ring on her finger. Anything you want, forever. They got married 6 months later. City Hall again. Ruby is their flower girl, for real this time. Bryn as maid of honor. Celeste attended, bringing her new partner, happy for them both. Beatrice was not invited, was not mentioned, had no place in their new beginning. And when they said I do this time, it meant something different. Not the hopeful promises of children, but the solid commitment of people who'd been broken and rebuilt, who knew love wasn't enough by itself, who understood that family was built on choice and consistency and showing up even when it was hard. Ruby stood between them as they exchanged vows. One small hand in each of theirs, connecting them, the reason they'd found their way back. Afterward, they went to that same Vietnamese restaurant where they'd had their first date, ate soup from chipped bowls, laughed with Ruby, began again, not where they'd left off, but somewhere better, somewhere earned. Beautiful souls, what's the lesson here? What's the truth we need to carry forward? First, a mother's love is the fiercest force in this universe. Hazel was 23, broke and alone, and she still chose to protect her child over everything else. Society might judge women like her, call them vindictive for keeping secrets, but she wasn't being cruel. She was surviving. She was protecting the most vulnerable person in her world with the only weapons she had, distance and silence and a strength most people will never need. Second, money and power mean absolutely nothing if you're not making your own choices. Griffin had everything, wealth, status, success, but he didn't have freedom. His mother controlled his relationships, his marriage, his entire life. Real power isn't what you own. It's the courage to choose your own path even when it costs you everything. Third, manipulation destroys more than just relationships. It destroys generations. Beatrice thought she was protecting her family, but her lies cost Griffin his marriage and 5 years with his daughter. Her control fractured every relationship she touched. When we manipulate the people we claim to love, we don't protect them. We poison them. We create wounds that take years to heal. Fourth, redemption isn't about apologizing. It's about changing. Griffin could have showed up with lawyers, could have demanded custody, could have used his wealth and power to take Ruby. Instead, he showed up consistently, went to therapy, set boundaries with his mother, earned his place in his daughter's life one day at a time. That's real change, not words. Actions, daily choices over years. Fifth, some love stories need to be interrupted to become what they're meant to be. Hazel and Griffin at 23 were too young, too naive, too controlled by others to make their relationship work. But Hazel at 28, independent, strong, clear about her worth. And Griffin at 32, healed, boundaried, choosing authentically. These versions of them had a real chance. Sometimes you have to lose someone to become the person worthy of keeping them. And, finally, trust isn't rebuilt with words. It's rebuilt with time. Hazel didn't forgive Griffin in a moment of passion. She made him prove himself, day after day, month after month, year after year, 3 full years of consistent action before she could believe he'd actually changed. That's not coldness. That's wisdom. That's self-respect. That's knowing your worth and refusing to settle for less. If you're watching this and you've been the Hazel, betrayed, abandoned, fighting alone, I want you to know something. Your strength is extraordinary. The way you've protected yourself and your children matters. You're not bitter for having boundaries. You're wise. You're not cold for requiring proof instead of promises. You're smart. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting your peace. If you're the Griffin, someone who's realized too late what they've lost, there's hope. But only if you're willing to do the real work. Therapy, boundaries with toxic family members, consistent action over years. You can't buy back trust. You can't demand forgiveness. You have to earn it. One choice at a time, one day at a time, 1 year at a time. And even then, the person you hurt doesn't owe you another chance. But if they give you one, treat it like the gift it is. And if you're dealing with a Beatrice, someone who manipulates in the name of love, please understand this. You have the right to set boundaries, even with family, especially with family. Protecting your peace, your children, your relationships from manipulation isn't cruel. It's necessary. It's healthy. It's the only way to break cycles that have been poisoning your family for generations. This story doesn't have a perfect ending because life doesn't have perfect endings. It has real ones. Messy, complicated, beautiful real ones where people grow and heal and sometimes, not always, but sometimes, find their way back to each other. Different, scarred, but also stronger, wiser, more capable of real love than they were before. Hazel and Ruby started with nothing and built everything that mattered. Griffin lost everything and found what was actually valuable. And together, they created a family. Not the one they'd imagined, but the one they fought for, the one they earned. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think differently about second chances, or forgiveness, or what real love requires, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button so YouTube knows you want more stories like this. Real, raw, meaningful narratives that actually teach us something about life. Subscribe to Love and Twilights with Dr. Phillips and turn on those notifications. Every week I'm bringing you stories that will challenge you, inspire you, and remind you of your own strength. Share this video, not for the algorithm, though I appreciate that, but because someone you know needs this message. Someone is trying to decide whether to give a second chance. Someone is fighting alone like Hazel. Someone needs to hear that redemption is possible, but it requires real work. And drop a comment. Tell me what this story taught you. Tell me what you would have done differently. Tell me if you're team second chance or team protect your peace. Because both are valid. Both are important. And the answer depends on whether someone is willing to do the work to earn that chance. I'm Dr. Phillips, and I'll see you in the next story. But before you go, remember this. You are worthy of love that chooses you. Consistently. Every single day. Love that backs up words with action. Love that sees you as a priority, not an option. Don't settle for less. Don't accept manipulation disguised as care. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for requiring them to prove they've changed before you risk your heart again. And if you're the one who needs to change, who needs to prove themselves, understand that it takes time. Years, maybe. And that's okay. Real transformation isn't quick. It's deep. It's lasting. It's the kind of change that rebuilds foundations instead of just painting over cracks. Some love stories aren't finished when they're interrupted. They're just waiting for the people in them to become who they need to be, to grow, to heal, to learn what love actually requires. This was one of those stories, and maybe yours is too. Until next time, beautiful souls, Keep fighting for what matters. Keep protecting your peace. Keep believing that people can change when they choose to do the work. And keep loving, not recklessly, not naively, but wisely, with boundaries and self-respect, and the understanding that the greatest love stories aren't the easy ones. They're the ones that required everything from everyone involved, the ones that were earned,